Picture the most powerful man on earth, Augustus Caesar.
Okay.
I mean, he owned palaces, he commanded massive armies, and he practically ruled the entire known world.
Right, literally had everything.
Everything. Yet he spent his entire life begging for a single day of peace that he, never actually got.
Wow.
Meanwhile, you have Admiral James Stockdale. He was locked in a prisoner of war camp, stripped of absolutely everything, enduring unimaginable conditions, and he somehow found this profound, unshakable inner peace.
It's quite the contrast.
It really is. So
Yeah.
what did the prisoner know that the emperor didn't?
Well, the prisoner understood that peace isn't a place you go, it is a structure you build.
A structure.
Exactly. And when you strip away the geography, the wealth, all that external noise, you're just left with the only sanctuary that actually exists, the one inside.
So if you are someone who is constantly trying to navigate the overwhelming noise of everyday life, or if you just want to, gain a deeper understanding of how the world's most resilient people operate, without feeling totally bogged down by information overload, this deep dive is for you.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one today.
We're exploring a synthesis of sources titled The Retreat is Within. We've got notes, historical research, philosophical texts, and the mission here is to uncover a specific blueprint.
Because the exact same truth keeps emerging, right?
Yes, from ancient Roman emperors and theologians to modern tech executives, championship basketball coaches, and even, like, pop stars.
I think the consistency of this pattern across thousands of years is what makes it so compelling.
For sure.
It highlights this core realization that resilience, toughness, peace, they aren't things you simply stumble upon or find out in the world. They are conditions you have to construct yourself.
Which brings us to a brilliantly wry observation from André Gide that kicks off our sources today. He said, everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything must be said again.
I love that quote. It's just an honest acknowledgement that as humans, we genuinely struggle to internalize these truths.
We really do.
The ideas aren't new at all, but the reminders are absolutely necessary because our default instinct is always to look outside of ourselves for the solution.
And the central anchor for everything we're about to, say again today comes from Jocko Willink.
Oh, right.
He distills this entire philosophy into just a few words. He says, tough things will make you tougher. Soft things will make you softer. Choose wisely.
Choose wisely.
Yeah. So today, we're going to trace this idea. We'll look at it through the lenses of the physical spaces we inhabit, how we survive catastrophic loss, how top leaders evaluate talent, and finally, how we actually strategize for a totally unknown future.
Because whether we're talking about sports or management or ancient philosophy, all these diverse fields converge on one center.
The retreat is within.
Exactly. And everything else is just a consequence of having built that structure.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with this pervasive myth of the getaway versus the built retreat. We really need to dismantle the idea that peace is like a set of coordinates on a map.
We can look directly at Marcus Aurelius for this. In his Meditations, specifically Book 4, he writes about how people are always seeking retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, or up in the mountains.
Right.
But he calls this yearning the trait of a base person.
Which, at first glance, sounds incredibly harsh.
It does, yeah.
Like he's attacking the very concept of just taking a weekend off.
But he's not attacking the vacation itself, right? He's attacking the delusion behind it.
Ah, okay.
He calls it base because it ignores the reality that you can, at any given moment, find a retreat within yourself. To believe you need a mountain to feel peace is to basically give away all your agency to your surroundings.
Let's bring Ryan Holiday into this, because his observations on Augustus Caesar perfectly illustrate this trap. Holiday points out the absolute tragedy of Augustus's life.
Right, the most powerful man in the world.
Literally.
Yeah.
He had access to anything a human being could want, yet he spent his life praying for a leisure that he never permitted himself to experience. Seneca called it a sweet though false hope.
A false hope, yeah.
Augustus consoled himself with the idea that one day he would finally live for himself.
And the problem is, waiting for circumstances to perfectly align to grant you peace usually means you'll just wait until you run out of time entirely.
Exactly.
There's a powerful secular parallel to this from Jon Kabat-Zinn, coming from the mindfulness space. He just says simply, wherever you go, there you are.
I love that.
You can change the geography, sure, but your internal weather system just travels right along with you.
Even Ralph Waldo Emerson gets misunderstood on this front.
Right.
People love to quote his line, live in the sunshine, swim the sea, drink the wild air.
You see it on inspirational posters everywhere.
Everywhere. And it's often misread as an invitation to escape into nature, like just run away from your problems and go to the beach.
But the context of his work reveals the exact opposite of escapism.
Right.
Emerson is describing someone who is intensely fully present. They aren't fleeing their daily life. They are fully inhabiting the exact moment they are in.
Yes.
The inner retreat Marcus Aurelius describes isn't an absence of reality, it's a profound presence within it.
And it manifests physically, too.
Mm-hmm.
Gino Auriemma, the legendary basketball coach, observed that the difference between a really good player and a great one is that great players simply don't get tired.
Which sounds impossible.
Right, they aren't biologically superhuman, but they have trained themselves so relentlessly that they push past the point where the body's complaints are persuasive. The physical toughness is built from the inside out.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Even Gretchen Rubin has a domestic rule for this. She says, if you can't find something, clean up. You impose external order on your physical space to reflect and reinforce the internal order you are trying to build.
Right, so you're using the external environment as a tool to shape the internal state, rather than expecting the environment to magically do the work for you.
Exactly. Waiting for a vacation to finally feel peace is basically like hitting the snooze button on your actual life.
Ooh, that's a good analogy.
You aren't really resting, you know.
Yeah.
You're just delaying the inevitable alarm. You're sacrificing the present moment for a future getaway that might not even recharge you.
It's like putting your life on layaway.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But this leads us to a much heavier reality. I mean, it's one thing to say the internal retreat helps us deal with daily stress or physical exhaustion.
Sure.
But if this retreat is a structural condition built by choosing Jocko Willink's tough things, what happens when the tough thing isn't a choice at all?
Yeah.
What happens when it's a sudden, catastrophic, unimaginable tragedy?
Well, this is where the philosophy faces its most brutal test. If we look at Marcus Aurelius's actual life, he wasn't writing his journal from a place of pampered luxury.
Not at all.
His reign was battered by continuous wars, horrific plagues, and the devastating premature loss of several of his own children.
And Holiday notes that Marcus could have easily used his journal to rage at the universe, to ask, why me? But he didn't.
No, he didn't.
He didn't have a rigid procedure for grief. He had a method. And that method was simply putting one foot in front of the other and extending grace to other people, a grace he rarely received himself.
The sources actually include a lyric from the musical Hamilton that captures the texture of this kind of catastrophic loss perfectly.
Oh, yeah?
It says, "There are moments that the words don't reach. There is a grace too powerful to name. We push away what we can never understand.
Yeah.
We push away the unimaginable.
That's powerful.
When you face the truly unimaginable, the external world has no sanctuary left to offer you. Nothing outside of you can give you back what you lost."
I do have to push back on this a little bit, though. Doesn't Musashi's command, where he says, get beyond love and grief, exist for the good of man, doesn't that sound a bit like modern toxic positivity?
I can see why you'd say that.
Or just severe emotional suppression? Like, hey, just get over your grief and get back to work.
Right, but what's fascinating here is that the Stoics, Musashi, and ancient theologians are absolutely not saying that grief or fear aren't real.
Okay.
They are profoundly, agonizingly real. But we have to understand Epictetus's concept of prohairesis.
Prohairesis.
Yes, to explain it simply, prohairesis is your faculty of rational choice. Think of it like a stone citadel.
Okay, the citadel.
The fear, the grief, the absolute chaos of a catastrophic loss, that is the severe weather pounding against the walls of the citadel. It's loud, it's terrifying, and it's happening to you.
Right.
But prohairesis is the understanding that you are inside the citadel, and the weather cannot make your decisions for you.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when the sources layer that over theology, like 2 Timothy 1.7.
Right.
Which states that God gives a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind, not fear.
Exactly. Fear becomes a sin in these frameworks only when it causes you to abdicate your agency.
Ah, I see.
Musashi isn't commanding you to magically stop feeling grief. He's commanding you against paralysis. The grief is real, but you refuse to let the fear make the decision for you. It's about finding the capacity to act beneath the grief.
John Wooden's advice really echoes this dynamic. He said, don't be thrown off by events, whether good or bad.
Yeah, that's a crucial point.
It makes immediate sense for bad events, but good events destabilize you just as quickly if your internal equilibrium depends entirely on circumstances going your way.
Definitely. And it's easy to see how this inner retreat helps us survive tragedy. But what's fascinating is that this exact same mechanism, finding out what you're capable of when external supports are stripped away, is how top leaders evaluate and manage talent.
Let's transition into that, because applying this pressure testing logic to the corporate world reveals some pretty intense strategies.
It really does.
We look at someone like tech executive Keith Rabois. His management strategy is to literally expand an employee's responsibility until it breaks,
Right. You give them more and more complex problems until they hit a wall.
until they fail.
Exactly, because that breaking point shows you their true role and capacity, which might be vastly larger than you assumed based on just their resume.
Wait, I have to pause you there. I get how Marcus Aurelius used this internal resilience to survive a literal plague, but Keith Rabois breaking an intern over a logistics issue.
I know, it sounds a bit.
The sources mention an intern who was handed a wildly complex smoothie logistics problem that had stumped senior people. That feels a lot less profound and a little more like, well, corporate exploitation.
Yeah.
How does pushing an intern to the brink fit into finding inner peace?
It's a very fair question, and it's a crucial distinction to make. We aren't talking about enduring trauma in the workplace. We're talking about manufacturing productive stress.
Productive stress. Okay.
Until that intern hit the breaking point, they were limited by everyone else's assumptions about what an intern could do. Solving the smoothie problem wasn't about the smoothies.
Right.
It was about revealing an enormous capacity for problem solving under load. Rabois also notes that you should watch who people naturally walk over to for help. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that person's desk becomes a gathering point because they have built an internal capacity that others need to lean on.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Manufacturing that productive stress is essentially like an aeronautical engineer stress testing an airplane wing.
That's a perfect analogy.
You don't apply intense pressure in a laboratory because you hate the wing or want to destroy it.
Right.
You apply pressure because it's literally the only way to prove exactly how much turbulence that wing can safely handle before you confidently put passengers on board.
And when you apply that same necessary pressure not just to individuals, but to entire institutions, it forces the room to expand. It forces inclusion.
Yeah.
We see this with George Raveling and Joe Gibbs, who both assert that character comes first. But character isn't a moral resume here.
Yeah.
Character is what emerges under that stress test.
Tony Dungy reflects on this deeply using Isaiah 56, where the temple is declared a house of prayer for all nations, not just the insiders, but everyone.
But Dungy notes that, ironically, secular institutions are often far more diverse and integrated than modern churches.
He uses a very specific, vivid metaphor for this, a college basketball tournament.
Oh yeah, the tournament.
You look at the stands and you have rival Wake Forest and Clemson fans cheering side by side. Allegiances shift, colors mix, and barriers drop. He sees that fiercely competitive crowd as a secular glimpse of what the kingdom of God is actually supposed to look like.
The connection to talent evaluation is stark. Competitive pressure, like this myopic driving need to win, often forces institutions to open their doors and integrate long before their moral principles do.
Absolutely.
Reluctant coaches integrated their teams decades ago because excluding top talent was making them lose. The pressure of the game forces the expansion of the room.
You simply cannot artificially limit your talent pool and survive extreme pressure. And the beautiful thing about this philosophy of the inner retreat is that it requires no special pedigree to start practicing.
Right, anyone can do it.
Marcus Aurelius famously said, "There is no role so well suited to philosophy as the one you happen to be in right now. Philosophy isn't a credential you earn. It's a daily practice you apply from wherever you stand."
Which is perfectly illustrated by the wildly diverse list of practitioners in our sources today.
Yeah, the list is wild.
You have figures ranging from Admiral James Stockdale as a POW, to Theodore Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson, Toussaint Louverture, and Beatrice Webb.
And James Mattis.
Yes. But let's look at how two vastly different modern figures apply this. You have legendary football coach Nick Saban, and you have pop star Camila Cabello.
Right, they live in completely different universes, but they are applying the exact same mechanism.
It's crazy.
Nick Saban uses it to handle the immense crushing pressure of a national championship game. He trains his players to focus entirely on the execution of the next single play, completely divorcing themselves from the noise of the crowd or the scoreboard.
And Camila Cabello talks about using it to survive the chaotic, often toxic noise of global pop stardom. She publicly stated she wishes Stoicism was taught in schools because she uses it to separate external opinions, like what the internet says about her, from her own internal worth.
It's the identical mechanism, aggressively separating what you can control from what you cannot.
It really proves that the inner retreat is accessible and necessary from literally any starting position.
It does.
So if we are stress testing the talent around us and pushing boundaries in the present moment, how do we actually plan for a future that is constantly shifting? We can't just rely on a static checklist to get us through the next decade.
This is where we get into navigating time and uncertainty. Seth Godin offers a sharp critique here about how we constantly confuse procedure with true strategy.
Right.
He references Donald Knuth and the mathematician Cleo looking back at ancient cuneiform algorithms.
Let's break that down for a second, because ancient cuneiform algorithms sound a bit intimidating.
Fair enough.
Cleo talks about not being locked into a single axiom system.
So let's simplify what an axiom system actually is. Think of an axiom system like the strict rule book for a specific board game.
Okay.
If you're playing chess, the axiom system dictates that the knight moves in an L shape. The ancient mathematicians writing those cuneiform tablets would solve a complex problem and conclude with the phrase, "This is the procedure," meaning just follow these exact steps blindly inside this specific rule book.
So a procedure is just following the knight's L shape because you were told to.
Exactly. But Cleo points out that as a human being navigating the real world, you are not locked into a single axiom system.
Right.
You can use your intuition to realize you don't have to play chess at all. A strategy is looking at the whole board, understanding the uncertainty, and navigating toward a desired outcome, even if it means rewriting the rules entirely.
Godin uses podcast booking as an example of working backward to build that strategy.
He does, yeah.
He says, you identify your absolute dream guest, the person who seems impossible to reach. Then you work backwards, step by step, finding the connections until you identify the person you can actually reach today.
Right.
He points out that most overnight successes are actually just the visible culmination of years of invisible, backward planned preparation.
Working backwards from the future is an incredibly powerful way to bypass mere procedure. Peter Drucker did this brilliantly in his 1999 essay.
Oh, this is great.
He predicted the internet would become a massive e-commerce distribution channel well before that was a daily reality for most people.
And Drucker issued a specific action point, and I want to pose this directly to you, the listener. Are you just following a cuneiform procedure, a checklist someone else wrote for you?
Yeah, that's the question.
Drucker challenges you to jump forward to the year 2041. Identify the technological developments happening right now and name 3 entirely new businesses or industries that will emerge from them. What is the future you are working backward from today? Begin now. Don't wait.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, working backward from the future dictates what we choose to do with our minds in the present moment.
How so?
Well, Holbrook Jackson created a taxonomy of reading. He said we read to train the mind, fill it, rest it, recreate it, or escape it.
Taking Drucker's challenge seriously, or even engaging with this very deep dive right now, that is Jackson's training the mind.
Exactly.
You aren't listening to this to escape reality. You're training your mind to navigate it better.
Which perfectly sets up Bruce Lee's ultimate synthesis. Knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do.
I love that quote.
And there is a physical parallel to this from golf coach Bob Toshowski. He observed that good players swing beautifully from above the waist and they move beautifully from below it. Excellence integrates the entire body.
The upper body and lower body working as one fluid motion.
Godin's backward planning strategy and Bruce Lee's demand for immediate action are the exact same organism moving beautifully together. You look to the future, but you act decisively in the present.
So what does this all mean? We've traced an incredible philosophical through line today. From realizing that the inner retreat is a structure we must actively build, rather than a beach we escape to.
Right.
We've seen how choosing Jocko Willink's tough things helps us survive unimaginable grief by relying on our rational choice. We've explored how stress testing reveals the true character of the talent around us, and how we must work backwards from 2041 to rewrite the procedures of today.
Hovering over all of this is a really sobering reminder from an anonymous quote at the very end of our sources. It points out that 100 years from now, we will all be gone. The time we have right now is ours entirely to choose.
No external circumstance is going to hand you peace. No mountain cabin is going to magically restore your focus if your internal weather system is a hurricane. You have to build the sanctuary yourself.
You really do.
But before we sign off, I wanted to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about Keith Robois suggesting we expand a person's responsibility until it breaks to find their true capacity. And we started with Marcus Aurelius, insisting the only true retreat is found within.
It's a profound intersection of ideas when you put them side by side.
Ask yourself, what if the moment you finally break under pressure isn't actually a failure of your skills? What if your breaking point is just the exact moment you are finally forced to stop relying on external circumstances and discover the internal retreat you've been avoiding your whole life?
When the suitcase finally bursts, you realize you never needed to pack it in the first place.
The choice of what to build next is entirely yours. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.